There's plenty of zombie movies out there at this point, with many beloved classics like 28 Days Later or Dawn of the Dead. But what if I told you the most successful of them all was one you forgot? World War Z released back in 2013, a time when the zombie genre was pretty stale. For context, The Walking Dead show had been going on for just about 3 years, and the only zombie movies around was Warm Bodies, which was a romance zombie movie, and let's be honest, who the fuck goes to the movies to watch a zombie love story? So with that being said, World War Z chose the perfect time to release. A fresh, new take on the zombie genre solidified its success as the movie went on to earn $540 million in the box office. To this day, World War Z is the highest grossing zombie film in the history of cinema. So let's revisit World War Z and see what it did right and how this movie never stuck around for a sequel. I'll give a quick recap of the story, so yes, there's gonna be spoilers. So yeah, there's your warning. The story follows a former UN investigator who gets called back into action in order to find a solution to the overwhelming danger of a zombie outbreak. So after getting his family to safety on a ship in open sea, his investigation takes him to Korea, where supposedly the outbreak started. He doesn't exactly get the answers he's looking for, but he does find out that Israel prepared months ahead of time before the outbreak. We then see our protagonist Jerry head to Jerusalem, where further gathering of information occurs. Here, Jerry finds out Israel was one of the few nations who intercepted early communications of the coming threat and decided to take it seriously, preparing and building surrounding walls. It is also discovered that the infected ignore certain individuals who have some type of illness and are deemed unworthy for the spread of the virus. But before anything of further use can occur, the motherfuckers start singing too loud and anger the infected enough to begin piling on each other like fucking ants. So eventually the zombies make it inside the walls, and Jerry is forced to board a plane where his next stop is the World Health Organization research facility to attempt to work with scientists on a solution to the problem. Towards the end of the flight, shit hits the fan and they end up crashing, but thanks to plot armor, Jerry and the one Israeli chick whose arm he cuts off miraculously are the only survivors, and they make their way to the research facility. Upon arriving, the scientists and Jerry realize the infected ignore those who are essentially terminally ill, so the game plan is to get their hands on some dangerous viruses that they can utilize to pretty much cloak themselves from the infected. The only problem though is that the area of which all these pathogens are stored is completely overrun with zombies. So after some prepping and arming, Jerry and some others conduct a nice little stealth mission, but shit hits the fan again, and in the midst of the chaos, Jerry is stranded alone. He does, however, find the storage unit, but while gathering all necessities, he is cornered and trapped by a lone infected. At this point, Jerry takes a chance and ejects himself with a pathogen. After giving some time, he eventually conducts the ultimate test, and what do you know? The zombie doesn't want AIDS, so ignores him. So now Jerry drinks a Coke and dramatically makes his way back to the main office, where they go on to spread the good news. As the story concludes, we're left with humanity beginning its comeback against the undead. So, now that we got the quick recap out of the way, let's talk about the first impressions versus now. When I first saw this movie, it had just released in theaters, and my uncle pressured me into watching it, knowing damn well my 12-year-old ass was gonna shit myself. And while yes, a couple cheap jump scares got me, I was widely entertained and invested. Like mentioned at the start of the video, the zombie genre was pretty stale, and especially after enjoying games like Dead Island and Black Ops 2 Zombies, my itch to see something fresh was finally scratched. Now after recently rewatching the film for this video, it surprisingly still entertained me. Now I will admit, the story structure is comically overdone, as it feels like every post-apocalyptic story involves a family with kids, and of course one of the kids has to be fucked up somehow, having like asthma or some dumb shit like that. Like bro, come on, just be original. But anyways, besides the cliches, there has yet to arrive another blockbuster zombie film that replicates such a massive scale of setting. I mean, they literally had George Square and surrounding streets of Glasgow, Scotland, sorry about that, can't read, closed off for filming for multiple weeks. They even had access to filming in Fort St. Elmo in Malta and parts of airfields in England. The production was impressive, and even watching it now, it's nice to constantly see new scenery with different scenarios involving the infected. One thing that stood out to me was this was one of the very few adaptations that actually greatly deviates from its source material and manages to successfully pull that off. For those unaware, this movie is loosely based off a novel, and I emphasize loosely because Jerry isn't even a character in the book, and the zombies don't even fucking run. And speaking of the zombies, that's another standout of this movie. Running zombies aren't new at all. However, in no other zombie media do the zombies arrive in absolutely devastating hordes that pile on each other like ants. It really brings a sense of chaos and organic danger and leads into very entertaining action sequences. Now, how does this movie age? Well, for starters, the CGI isn't exactly terrible, and in my opinion, blends beautifully with the practical effects even today. And after going through a pandemic of our own, it's safe to say the chaos and worry we see throughout the film is realistic and not too cheesy. I also want to point out the pacing of the movie. I think this movie is criminally underrated in regards to pacing. Every major action piece is followed by a more relaxed atmosphere for the sake of character and plot development, which never feels rushed or dragged on, something many movies can't seem to do right today. Whether it was interesting information or some crazy ass action, I never found myself bored watching the movie. Unfortunately, it seems there will never be a sequel despite its massive success, as plans for one never surpassed the writing stage, and eventually, the whole project was forgotten about just after pre-production. In conclusion, the movie is a fun zombie film that thrives on massive action and not so much on character development, if any at all. Now, as I use my watch or skip calculator, let's see, the final verdict is watch.